he comes in the office and he sits down. I said, Dave, I can tell something's wrong. What is it? So he begins to tell me about he's no longer into running his manufacturing business. This is his company, well-respected guy, beloved in the community, but he's just not feeling it. And I said, for whatever reason, these words shot out of my mouth. I said, Dave, is there a cause that you care deeply about? And he begins to tell me a story about he took his family overseas a couple years back, and they went to a village, and he remembered the guide talking about that this particular area had absolute poverty, but it could be changed if they had a school building that could educate the kids. And he remembered exchanging this glance with his wife as if to say, hey, wouldn't it be cool to fund that school? Well, he gets back to the States, life gets busy and so forth. But my question brought this all back. And I said, Dave, what if you did this? Crazy idea for you. What if you set a big goal to increase your sales by, let's say, 20% over the next 12 months, and you
Welcome to AFO Wealth Management Forward, a podcast powered by Arrowroot Family Office that's at the intersection of accounting, wealth management, behavioral finance, technology, and entrepreneurship. We help accounting firms and financial advisors grow their practice by going beyond the numbers as we learn from industry leaders and subject matter experts to discover the secret to their success. A podcast that highlights everything from the transformative power of AI to embracing the human-first approach of behavioral finance to help you understand the psychological and emotional relationships to money and meaning. Here is your host, Rory Henry, director at Arrowroot Family Office and author of Holistic Guide to Wealth Management.
All right. Hello, everyone. I have another phenomenal guest joining us today. He has been seen on Fox, CNN, Forbes, CNBC. He's the author of Good Money Revolution. He helps advisors build a 7 to 8 figure business, live with purpose, and do more good. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Derrick Kinney. Derrick, welcome to the show.
Rory, thank you, man. I am super pumped to be here. Love your energy, love the impact you have. I'm honored to be one of your guests, man.
I'm honored to have you on, Derrick. I love your work. I've been seeing your stuff online. For those in our audience, though, that don't know you, can you kind of talk about, what led you into financial services and the work you're doing today?
So I was 26 years old. I looked like I was 13, had a big problem, wondered who would work with a young guy like me. And that's what led me to financial services. My parents, I always saw them work so hard, but they struggled. And I would see my friends of my parents struggle, and it seemed like they believed there was this secret vault where all the success knowledge of how to be great with money was locked up, and average Americans didn't have the combination. And I said, that's just not right. And I wanted to go into financial services to help people like my parents have access to this knowledge and really provide a simple way to make complex topics easy to understand. So that was really the guiding premise of how can I solve this problem I see every day in my own house and help other people with that same problem.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your inception to the industry, because I was listening to another podcast that you're on, and I'm all about trying to make paths easier, right? Doing the work, but also making it easier. Can you talk about the approach that you started with to kind of make your business development and your operations easier by partnering with, one of the top advisors out there?
Yeah, one of the things that I did early on was I realized I would have to take a lot of time to learn the ropes of how to be a great financial advisor, or I could find an existing great financial advisor and split the business. And what I realized was that 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. I mean, it's a simple math problem, Rory, you know that. But it's so funny because other new advisors that started at the same time I did questioned me. And they made me feel like I was the one making the bad decision. Like, why would you split the business? And I'm like, look, I won't live long enough to learn all I need to be successful if I can short circuit that. And what I learned was the power of the expert in the room. And one of the things that I like to do is if I'm in front of a prospective client or even an existing client, and I have another subject matter expert with me, it is so fun to sort of banter back and forth and argue in front of the client on what option is best for them. I mean, the client is like, this is better than Netflix, for goodness sakes. I love to have people arguing to see what's going to benefit the client the best. And so it was almost theatric, but it was so beneficial. And what I realized was there's a power in not knowing everything.
Yeah.
The power was to say, here's what I specialize in, here's my unique ability to solve this problem, and I'm an expert to know what I'm not expert in, so I bring in other experts. And clients and prospects love being surrounded by experts.
Yeah. I call it a dream team. And I talk about
A
this
dream
obviously
team.
with our
Yeah.
virtual family office, where you can bring in other subject matter experts and the clients absolutely love it because they feel like they have a dream team of advisors working together to really truly provide them advice.
So Roy, you're sort of like, we'll say you're LeBron and maybe I'm Kobe, you know.
That would be a dangerous team.
That would be dangerous, yes.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dangerous here, I know you have this concept of a daily routine. I think you say that, to be dangerous, that, your routine, becomes your revenue, or your routine leads to revenue. Can you talk
Yeah.
about how to set up those processes, that routine really to help you generate the revenue that you need?
Are you an accountant looking to generate more revenue and secure your future success as automation and artificial intelligence revolutionize the accounting profession? If so, contact us at AFO Wealth Management Forward. We specialize in helping accountants and advisors just like you build a custom brand to pinpoint your optimal clientele, generate highly qualified leads through our data-driven digital marketing, and execute wealth management growth services to bring more value to your firm and your client's life. Our strategic approach to branding, marketing, and wealth management is carefully tailored to attract ideal clients, increase customer retention rates, and cultivate lasting relationships with clients across generations. Visit wealthmanagementforward.com to book your free consultation to find out how you can elevate your practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. Many of your listeners may be an A personality, which is what I am. And I tend to drive really, really hard. And I always think my way is the best way. It's just how we're born, you know.
Yeah.
And what I realized was I often would rationalize, well, maybe I don't want to do that today. I may do it tomorrow. And what I realized was that the routine leads to revenue. That if I'm going to be successful, I just have to follow a blueprint for success. And so if it's up to me, for example, to get up at 6 in the morning and hop on the Peloton bike, half of the time I don't want to get up and I don't want to get on the Peloton bike. But if I just simply say, Rory, here's my routine. This is the checklist. And so the routine becomes my boss. I just simply follow what the boss says to do. And then once I get off that bike, I shower, I take my vitamins, I eat my oatmeal, and then I do the hardest thing I need to do that day before noon every morning. And typically it involves human to human contact. What I've learned is when I'm the freshest is when I need to do the hardest thing. So that means making the calls to the prospects, calling the referrals, having that uncomfortable conversation with another person, because once I do that, and if I can crush the morning, the rest of the day seems like cake. And then when I'm home, and if I want to binge watch my favorite show, I can sit there relaxing, knowing that I did the hard things and I did the routine. So what I would tell people is it's normal to fight the routine. That's what successful people do, because we tend to be the person that takes that perfectly tuned engine and we throw stuff in it to see the sparks fly and repair it again. We're always reinventing and forgetting where success comes from. So let the routine guide you. Again, what I have found is the most successful people find the simplest and the most effective ways to do stuff. I mean, if you think about this, if you were to go to Vegas to the Sphere and watch U2 play, do you think that before each concert, U2 is crafting brand new songs? Like they're coming up with brand new music for every show they do? Well, no, they're simply repeating the routine of performing every song great and making it sound like it's the first time they've ever sung it. And that's the beauty of following the routine effectively.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually just in Vegas and I wanted to see the Dead and Company so bad, but I wasn't there for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday show. I did see the movie they had there, and being in there, it's quite the spectacle, that they're putting on. Well, great. And, speaking of routine, who was I speaking to? Oh, it was Dr. Daniel Crosby. And he talked about the 3 E's of behavior change. And that being, one is education. Like you gotta have the education, you gotta know what's going on. Two was the environment, which I think you're talking about, is making sure you set up that environment to make running easy in the morning. Put the shoes at the bottom of the bed, right? Or
Right.
remove the junk food from the pantry so it makes it hard to eat the junk food. But also having that encouragement, which I always talk about, is what we do as advisors, is encouraging people to make the necessary behavior changes. I always say that, Derrick, that as a behavioral financial advisor, I'm in the behavior, I'm sorry, I'm in the belief and the behavior business. I'm in helping people believe they can do it and then create the necessary behavior changes to make their life goals and aspirations come true.
Yeah. You know, what I like about what you said is I'm a huge goal setter. So I'm actually on the airplane yesterday flying back from a speaking gig in Boston. And I'm typically not a talker on an airplane. I tend to work, but I just
Yeah.
engage this guy in a discussion and we get to talking about teens, which is one of my favorite passions of investing in them and teaching them life skills and money skills and business skills.
Yeah.
And he says to me, Derrick, what should be required in all schools along with history and math and science is goal setting. And I was like, dude, you are right on the money. And what it reminded me of is one of the things we do a family goal setting exercise every year. We've got 4 kids. We walk through a series of things. Now, the first couple years, we've done this for 10 years.
Yeah.
My kids would yell at me. They would throw stuff at me. They would say, you're
Kick
the
and
worst
scream,
dad
yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
But now, 10 years later, they're actually inviting their friends to join us because it's effective. They put their goal sheets on their mirrors and so forth. But the reason I say that is what I added 2 years ago, which was especially powerful for my kids and some of the advisors I work with, is sometimes the goal itself is powerful, Rory, but often what's more powerful is what's at stake if I don't achieve the goal.
Yeah.
What bad thing could happen to me or my family or the people I care about if I don't do this? In other words,
Yeah.
picture not walking on the sand and not feeling the granules of sand between your toes as you're holding your grandkid's hand walking on the beach, or not crawling on the floor at your kid's house in the Northeast chasing your grandkids, or not enjoying the retirement you want. Think about how painful that would be to miss out on that. And sometimes, as I like to say, until the pain is great, the change does not occur. Until the pain is great, the change does not occur, where there's not a compelling reason to be uncomfortable to in the future be comfortable.
Yeah. I believe you gotta seek out discomfort, be a creature of that discomfort. That's why that's why I did improv.
So true.
That's why I do improv, Derrick. I have an absolute fear of public speaking. And so I had to immerse myself in that fear and going on stage and taking suggestions and not knowing what to say, not having a pre-planned script and just being out there. And it's not try to be funny. You're just trying to react there. And hopefully the funny does occur. But making those leaps, those bounds, because what I did is I was able to frame that, and what you talked about, I was able to frame that in the sense that, if I don't do improv, I'm not going to be able to get to where I want to go in my business, in my personal life. This is a way for me to get overcome that challenge of being out in front of people and taking a suggestion, or being out in front of people and being comfortable speaking in front of groups there. So I love the fact that you're able to reframe that on taking those challenges and saying, well, if I don't do this, what's going to occur there?
Yeah. Well, and I think right now, especially, so many people just kind of drift through life, and there's sort of this misconception out there. And I think TikTok and Instagram and social media are some of the culprits of it, Rory, but they make it sound like, look, if you're successful and wealthy, you don't have these problems. You don't second guess yourself. You don't get questioned. You're always respected. You're beloved by all, and goals come easy to you. As a matter of fact, everybody has that Midas touch. And what I find is research and talking to successful people refutes that completely. It debunks the entire false narrative of that says, look, the more successful you are, if you can embrace it, simply the more failure and the more frustration and the more irritation you're going to face. But what I find is, and I'll tell you a quick story here. So when my wife and I were first married, we were part of a Bible study group of young couples, and we'd meet every week and we'd talk about what it was like to be married for the first time, and maybe have a kid and barely making the bills and so forth. And there was one couple that would always say, once we get past this, then things will get better. And I didn't think much about it, but months later they kept saying it because everything bad seemed to happen to them. They were
Yeah.
always down. And they would say, once we get past this, and what I realized was, wait a minute, we all never get past it. We
Yeah.
simply have to be happy going through it
Yeah.
and expect it. And once we do that, we don't get derailed by that. And I
Right.
think especially for entrepreneurs listening, CPAs that
Yeah.
know they're better than what their current revenue numbers say, they've got to realize, look, if I want to break through the next level, I've got to go through the same crap, if you will, of figuring stuff out and be uncomfortable to
Yeah.
get to that level because that's what other people have done.
Yeah. And we'll talk about being uncomfortable. And I know you talk about building teams and creating a culture, especially for employees. And it's not just about the culture there. It's really looking at the holistic nature of our relationships. And I talk about on the podcast many times the other dimensions of our well-being. So not just our financial, but that occupational, as well as our emotional, our spiritual, our physical well-being. Can you talk about the importance of maybe leaders out there building that culture and looking at not just the employee, but also that employee and the other dimensions of who they are beyond maybe their finances and their job?
Yeah, so let me tell you a story about Dave. So Dave was a longtime client, and those relationships, Rory, where you can just kind of tell something's bothering somebody without them even saying a word, just their body language, they're just slumped. He comes in the office and he sits down. I said, Dave, I can tell something's wrong. What is it? So he begins to tell me about he's no longer into running his manufacturing business. This is his company, well-respected guy, beloved in the community, but he's just not feeling it. And I said, for whatever reason, these words shot out of my mouth. I said, Dave, is there a cause that you care deeply about? And he begins to tell me a story about he took his family overseas a couple years back, and they went to a village, and he remembered the guide talking about that this particular area had absolute poverty, but it could be changed if they had a school building that could educate the kids. And he remembered exchanging this glance with his wife as if to say, hey, wouldn't it be cool to fund that school? Well, he gets back to the States, life gets busy and so forth. But my question brought this all back. And I said, Dave, what if you did this? Crazy idea for you. What if you set a big goal to increase your sales by, let's say, 20% over the next 12 months, and you took half of that increase and used it to fund that school? Well, Dave's eyes got as big as saucers. We began to brainstorm what it would look like. And we talked about, sending an email to his clients, letting them know. And I call this your generosity purpose. It's a cause that you care deeply about, but you can weave it into your business and clients love it. It swings this wide door open for them to want to be a part of something bigger. Well, what happens is he was going to come back in 6 months later. He short-circuited the plan and comes back in 3 months early. And I said, Dave, you look younger. You look more invigorated. What happened? And he says he let his clients and prospects know, hey, when you work with us, there's a lot of manufacturing companies you can work with, but you're part of something bigger. Our generosity purpose is we're going to help fund this school. And people bought into it. And what happened was his clients that grew, it grew his business. His team got re-engaged because now they're part of something bigger. But the big winner was Dave. Dave got completely remotivated. Now he wasn't doing
180.
it in the office just to make money.
Yeah.
Now it's like, how do I make more money to do more good with it? And so what I would tell people listening is, listen, the reality is every CPA out there is a commodity. I mean, Rory, you know this. The public perception is, well, all the CPA does is they
It's a bean
calculate
counter.
numbers.
Yeah.
And they fill in the forms. And every CPA listing knows, oh, there's so much more to what I do. But what I would tell you is, besides owning a problem that high net worth prospects need that you can specialize in, being known as a giver in your community, as someone who helps local education, who helps provide financial literacy, all of those things make you attractive in this way that you least expect for people to want to work with you, because they can work with any CPA, but they know if they work with you, they're helping that education at the local elementary school be even better, and it makes them feel like they're part of something bigger.
Yeah. I mean, they have an opportunity to empower the small and medium-sized business owners, which are the backbone of our country, with this why. What you're telling me, Derek, what I'm hearing is this is the belief in the behavior business, right? You're helping
Right.
people believe they can do something and giving them a why, a purpose, right, to do so. And then they have the necessary behavior changes to make their business operate better, to have a greater, more fulfilling work culture with their employees, and a better why to fund the life that they want. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and let me keep it really, really simple. So let me go back to 26-year-old Derek, brand new
Yeah.
advisor. I had this passion to invest in the lives of young people. So I went back to my alma mater high school here in Arlington, Texas, where I live today.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to recognize a teacher of the month and a student of the month. And of course, they said yes because they're strapped for money. They want to provide appreciation to their teachers.
Yeah.
So I come armed with a $50 Amazon gift card for the teacher, a $25 Amazon gift card for the student, a certificate for both, and lots of words of affirmation because I would have loved for a successful business person to come back to me and give me a hope of why am I taking math and science? What does the real world look
Right.
like? Well, what happened is I took a picture of myself and the principal, the teacher, the student. Now, back in those days, we had these things called newspapers. It was kind of this papery substance that it's long gone now, but we'd put this in the paper in the community section just for fun to give them recognition. Well, I began to get phone calls. And what happened about 3 months later was a call that literally changed my life. And it literally changed how I thought about business. A woman called and said, Derek, we see the work you're doing in the local schools and we want to work with you. We want to move our accounts over to you. And this had to be the most unprofessional thing, but I said, ma'am, of all the advisors in town, why do you want to work with me? I'm so young,
Yeah.
I'm brand new. And what she said changed everything. She said, Derek, we want to work with you because you care about what we care about.
Mm.
That changed everything for me. What I realized was, oh my
Right.
gosh, it's not having to be the smartest financial advisor or the one that has all the vast knowledge or all the
Right.
country club membership contacts or all the experience. It's the person they know is credible and has the ability to produce what they need and get good returns, manage their money well. But all things being equal, all advisors the
Yeah.
same, they wanted to work with me because they were part of something bigger.
Bigger.
And there's that cachet there. There's a status that comes with working with someone, all of us. I mean, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The
Yeah.
very top is that self-actualization. And what I believe is people who are successful, who are CPAs or managing and helping, provide tax strategies for, they want to have purpose and meaning in their lives. And sometimes it's up to us to be the doorway for that because they can't do it on their own. So if you're the CPA, go to the local school, say, hey, can I provide some financial literacy? Can I give an award out? Can I do something? Then promote that. You're going to be known as not just the tax savvy CPA,
Right.
but the person who cares about your community CPA, and that
Mm.
stands out.
Yeah. It's that purpose-driven life. I absolutely love it. Now,
Yes.
what I also doing my research here, Derek, that I liked about what you talked about is a sabbatical that you take because it's putting
You
that
did your
oxygen.
research.
Yeah, I did my research. Putting that oxygen mask on yourself before you start helping others. Can you talk about
Yeah.
your philosophy of doing that yearly sabbatical and then really mapping out your intentions and a pathway to where you want to go?
Yeah, and this may sound kind of crazy to a lot of your listeners, but I started doing this about 10 years ago, and I go away for about 5 days completely by myself.
Mm.
And the goal is, what I realized was, is I tend to run really fast, and I thought to myself, if I'm going to run fast 52 weeks out of the year, I need to take at least 1 week to figure out what am I running fast toward, right? I mean, it just makes sense,
Yeah.
but so many of us just keep running. We're sort of corporate athletes. There's no off
Yeah.
season. And I typically pick a spot by the beach. And so what I'll do is I'll ask myself 3 questions. Number one, how can I be a better husband? Number two, how can I be a better father? And number three, how can I be a better business owner? And
Mm.
those 3 questions guide me. And as a matter of fact, this was actually July of 2019. I'm in the W Hotel in Boston, right there on the wharf.
Yeah.
And I'm contemplating selling my financial advisory business. And I just feel the need to write a list out of all the things I would like to do next. And I wrote down write a book, launch a podcast, coach, speak, consult, all this list of things that like really got me excited.
I've
But
done the same thing, Derek.
yeah, I love it. I mean, shockingly, what wasn't on the list was being a financial advisor.
Ah,
And I was like, oh my gosh. So I came face to face. I've been thinking this, and you know those athletes that are your favorite athletes, and you
Yeah.
follow them, and then they sort of decline, and it's about a
Yeah.
2 year window, and you think to yourself, they should have retired 2 years ago at the top. I didn't want to be that person. I said, I'm going to
Yeah.
retire at the top because I took this practice as high as I could take it. And then I wanted to give it to another advisor that could then even scale it
Yeah.
further. But the purpose of that was to come back then with here's a clear action plan of what it is I want to do in all parts of my life and really come up almost with here's a goal, a 1 page goal sheet of what I'm going to chase hard toward this year. And it just allows me to have a say no list. Once I know
Yeah.
my goals and here's what I'm fighting for, when people give me items to think about, because I would struggle with FOMO a lot, fear of
Yeah.
missing out. And what I realized is I could then confidently say to people, you know what, that's great for you. It's not on my goal path, but it sounds like it's great for your goal path, and I could be comfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on a mission to have everybody have a holistic financial plan. Whether
Yes,
you're in
yes,
debt or you have, 100 million in assets. I believe that most people out there will be better off going through the process of doing a holistic financial plan. And what we talk about, Derek, and you just stated it, is really a life plan and
yes.
talking about what matters most to us. And going over where we want to go, and the more people we can get on board to talk about, what matters most to them, where they want to go in life, the better off we will be. And as I stated before, that CPA accounting professionals uniquely qualified as those people who guide the small and medium-sized business owners to start helping people do a life plan.
I think that's so good. And what I would say too is I think that sometimes CPAs carry too big of a burden. And Rory,
Yeah,
tell me if you agree or disagree. And I think a CPA typically recognizes the fiduciary and the role they have, the great responsibility they carry for their client. And it's not something they leave at the door when they leave at 5 o'clock. It's
yeah,
carried in their brain 24/7, as you know. But what I find is that what can you do to make things simpler? And one of the strategies I talk about a lot that I firmly believe in, it helped build my practice was, you think about when people sell on the features and benefits of their
yeah.
product or service. In other words, they talk about, well, if you work with me, my fee is only this amount, or we get your return done in 24 hours. Well,
Right,
okay,
right.
those are certain things, but
Service.
but ultimately, people come to you because they have a problem
Yeah,
and they need you to be the doctor that has the medicine to solve their problem. And it might be taxes, it might be finance, it might be life.
yeah.
But all they know is if they know that you have the solution to the
Solution.
problem, they're going to come to you. And so I talk about you've got to own the problem. If you're simply selling on your fees or
Yeah,
how fast you do things, you're renting success.
yeah.
And we know rent doesn't build net worth. But if you
Yeah,
own it, you own a problem, you own your success. And that's super
yeah.
important right now.
That's why I go back to the return on relationships. So
I
I
love
say
that.
you shouldn't be a servant to a service. You should service the relationship. And
Mm,
we have the ability to do so many things for that client relationship, whether it's taxes, whether it's investments, whether it's an estate plan, whether it's IT, cybersecurity, marketing, right? Doing a book. We can be that person that helps them, accomplish those goals that they're looking to do, whether we bring that in-house or we bring in other subject matter experts, but it's really being a servant to that relationship.
so true. And, as you were talking, what it reminded me of is how do we make life easier for a CPA? And
Yeah.
oftentimes what happens is the CPA is forced to find ways to market themselves. I mean, referrals are always good, but generally speaking, referrals don't come in at the pace we want them to, the consistency or the volume. And what that means is that you need to have something to say when you're in social settings. I believe that words equal wealth.
Yeah.
And what I find is that when people say to you in a social setting, hey, what do you do for a living? And you say, I'm a CPA. Well, what happens is, I mean, that should be revered and adored, but all of us, if we're being honest, have a mental checklist in our minds of, oh, you do taxes, you
Yeah.
probably overcharge people, and you put people in IRAs.
Yeah.
And then you're done. There's
Yeah.
nothing memorable. And what I find is that the memorable people make the most money. So instead of that, what I find and I suggest to people to say is, well, we specialize in insert core problem
Yeah.
that you solve for people. And then you want to talk about, we had a couple come in recently that really struggled with having a game plan to reduce their taxes. They felt like they were really paying too much.
Yeah.
And we came up with 3 simple solutions that saved them thousands of dollars. And it was one of the most rewarding moments of my life as a CPA. Well, what that does is you've now enrolled them in, you specialize. And the beauty is the way that we get out of commoditization is everybody thinks all CPAs are the same, but when you specialize, that changes. For example, if you needed to have a delicate procedure on your shoulder, who would you be more confident to go to? The general practitioner who knows a little bit about a lot,
Right.
or the specialist who all they do is shoulders 24/7?
Right.
And then you'd probably expect to wait longer to see the specialist. You'd probably expect to pay the specialist more, and you would revere the advice of the specialist even more. And so just by identifying yourself as a specialist in whatever you specialize in, it's not complicated, you're going to differentiate yourself rapidly from other CPAs.
Yeah. I totally agree. And it reminds me of what you talk about as far as being a person willing to talk about your services. So I think what you touched on and what I talk about is, going beyond delivering services, really staging those experiences, guiding transformations, but we have to let people know that what we can do for them. And so,
Yes.
we don't want to rob them of the opportunity to help us change their lives. Can you talk about this concept of really letting people know about your services and not being shy in doing so? Because if you do provide a good service, you're really helping transform people's lives.
Well, you are. And I think it's all how you phrase it. In other words, what often holds advisors back and CPAs back, anybody in the what I would call the consultative selling space, if you will, is they feel like they're coming across as a salesperson.
Right.
And one, you have to realize how you think you sound is typically vastly different than how you're being heard. And if you can, first of all, reconcile that, that's important. But second of all, what you don't want to do is come across and say, hey, do you want me to be your CPA? Here's our rate. And now it sounds very forceful. But instead, we want to come at it with, let me share with you a common problem that we often solve for people.
Yeah.
And the goal is by describing what you specialize in and the problem you solve, it makes you more relatable, because then the person is sitting there thinking, well, my CPA isn't talking about that. I have that same problem. I wonder if this person could work with me. And so you're actually attracting people by telling stories about other people. I mean, this is how the best radio shows, the best call-in shows work. Other people love to hear other people's problems. And if you can pick out a couple of your favorite client stories, what caused them to come in, how they felt when they came to see you, what you did to solve their problem, and how they felt when you solved the problem, in 60 seconds, you've got a couple key stories to drop at a moment's notice that you can provide in a social setting. And the goal is that when that person leaves you, boy, that's like the most fun, engaging CPI I've ever met with. And then you're memorable. That's the
Memorable. Yeah. Yeah. It's not what you want them to do, it's how you want them to feel.
That's
And
right.
I know you've been sprinkling in words of wisdom from Donald Miller. I'm a big fan of StoryBrand and Donald Miller.
Love Donald Miller.
Yeah. Is there any other tips that you have here outside of positioning and messaging that you can share with the audience?
Well, one thing that Don has taught me, and Don actually wrote the foreword to my book. I'm very
great.
thankful for that.
Yeah.
And Don always talks about that you want to use the least amount of words possible.
Yeah.
And I subscribe to that same concept that, oftentimes in the financial services world, we tend to think that we're charging by the
By the
word
word.
that we use, okay? And what I find is, and we tend to think that that's what will impress and attract people with money. And it's actually the opposite is true. Most people who are doing well financially make so many complex decisions every day. The last thing they want to do is pay you to make
it
their
more
life more
complicated.
complex. And they're certainly not paying you by the pound of the paper that you provide, or the pound, the PowerPoints. So the goal is you want to let people know, look, we specialize in helping executives simplify their life. We know you make lots of complex decisions. Here we're going to help you bottom line it. I'm going to give you, basically, I specialize in bullet points for great options for you.
Yeah.
And people love that, and they know, okay, here's the 3 options. Here's the good and the bad of each one. Here's what I recommend. How do you feel about it?
Yeah.
And the goal is to keep it simple, but also there's one of my favorite movies. Have you seen the movie The Founder, Roy? It's a
I
movie
have
about
not seen The Founder.
Ray Kroc. Okay, it's
Oh, you know what? I have. And Michael Keaton's in it,
Michael
right?
Keaton. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Great movie.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
So I mean, now the premise of it, basically, the guy sort of stole McDonald's. Aside from that,
Yeah.
there's this scene in the movie that you may remember. So they go to the tennis court, and they have their employees there, and they're actually on chalk writing out step by step,
Yeah.
motion by motion, everything it takes to make a hamburger.
Yeah.
And the goal is to not waste any step at all. And it's like this symphony of efficiency, they call it.
Yeah.
And what I would tell CPAs and advisors listening is you want to make sure that you have systems and structures in place where you could actually work yourself out of being the number one facing person in your business. Because what that does is it dramatically increases the multiple of your business. Whether you choose to sell or not, what you then do is now you have a franchisable concept that you can then take it all around the country if you chose to, or you could sell it. But it also refines it down to great results, and you know exactly the 3 to 5 steps it takes to do it, and anybody could do it. That's the way to really multiply and grow.
Yeah. That's why you can't sell your time for money, because the more efficient you are, the less you make. It's
Right.
all about outcomes. People don't care how efficient you are. If you're providing them with great outcomes, they're willing to pay for it.
Love that.
Awesome. Awesome, Derrick. All right. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience that we didn't cover?
No, Roy, I love your energy, man. I've enjoyed this.
I love your
and,
energy. I love your shirt. I love your book. I love your energy, Derrick.
I mean, my passion, the reason I came on your show is I have a firm belief that CPAs, financial advisors, people in the finance space, they work harder than anybody.
Yeah.
More than a typical, an attorney, a doctor, the CPA, the advisor are there to walk alongside their client through all of life's key decisions. So I have the utmost respect. I'm a former advisor myself, and I know you don't leave the office and leave their concerns at the office. You carry them with you. So I'm on a mission to help every CPA, every advisor. How can you attract higher quality, higher net worth people in the least amount of time, and you be the specialist? I was at the Apple store recently, and I saw a line of people out front before the door opened. And I thought that's because there's a buzz. That's because people clearly know what they're going to get. And I believe it's not unreasonable to think that if a CPA or an advisor clearly communicates their value, communicates the problem they own and have the solution to, they should have a line of people waiting to get on their calendar. And I want to help them do that.
I absolutely love it. All right, Derrick, thank you so much for coming on the show. If someone wants to get the book or reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, go to, the book is Good Money Revolution. It's available on Amazon, wherever you buy your favorite books. LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect at Derrick Kinney. Also, we've got a consumer-facing site, which is called GetTheRaiseYouWant.com, GetTheRaiseYouWant.com.
I love it. I'll put all that information in the show notes. I appreciate you coming on, Derrick.
Rory, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Buddy.
All opinions expressed by Rob Santos and Rory Henry on this website, podcast, interview are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Arrowroot Family Office LLC or their parent company or affiliates, and may have been previously disseminated on television, radio, internet, or another medium. You should not treat any opinion expressed by anyone as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy, but only as an expression of their opinions. Past performance is not indicative of future results.